Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 871B, and today's date is January 19th, 2016, and the title of the episode is FBI Puts Out Warning of a Lone Wolf Attack at the Super Bowl. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, a lot of people still believe that everything is going to be fine. They believe what the government, the corporate media tells them, that we're in a recovery, that America is the greatest nation, and we have nothing to worry about, so sit back, relax, and watch your TV shows. But when we take a look at the country right now, we notice a few things that really are not okay anymore. Well, actually, it's a complete disaster. Right now, the national debt is by far the highest of any country in history. The economic system is a house of cards, getting shakier every day. It's falling apart and collapsing. The government has become mired in progress-numbing fascism and increasing collectivism. The government is aggressively creating the world's most organized police state. The majority of the population have become wasteful, spendthrift consumers who apathetically hope that their government will somehow solve their problems. The media consistently misrepresents international events, lies to the people, uses propaganda, and prods the citizens of America to accept the ongoing invasion of multiple countries. And Americans right now retain the hope that somehow everything will just work out and the government will take care of it. As we know, the government is not working for the people. The government is not working to take care of these problems. The government is causing these problems. And if we compare everything from today to back when we had the revolution, we see that back in the late 18th century, America was a collection of colonies. Colonists, they had to work hard to survive. So the work ethic and self-reliance were paramount in the colonist makeup. Colonists back then, they made their own decisions. They had no government schools or media telling them what, choices to make, what to think. They relied on common sense and self-determination to make all these type of decisions. Today, it's a little different. Less than 2% of Americans are involved in agriculture. A mere 9% are actually employed in the production of goods. They are rarely directly involved in their own physical protection. Most, if not all, combat is overseas and fought by defense contractors or those who voluntarily serve the military. Most Americans receive benefits of one type or another from the government. Most recipients regard these benefits as essential and could not get by without them. Most Americans receive their opinions from the media. And we have a huge disconnect today of those people who are plugged into the system and those people who are now outside of the system looking at what is going on. And we know for a fact that the United States government central bankers, they are very nervous about those people who escaped the system, who are listening to other viewpoints, who are starting to think, make decisions, research the information. And this is what they're very nervous about. And this is why they've been trying to remove the rights of the people. This is why they're trying to erase the history of how America was formed. And what's very interesting is that the birthplace of the Bill of Rights, which was the James Bell Tavern in Pennsylvania, was demolished, at least half of it. And they didn't realize that this was the place where the rights, the first 10 amendments, were created. And what's very interesting is the property was never listed as an historical landmark, which it should have been. And the property was previously run by an auto shop and owned by the Triple Crown Corporation, who received a permit to destroy the building by the Silver Spring Township in Pennsylvania. And of course, they're saying this is a big mistake. We didn't realize this building was historical. But what's very interesting is that they never listed the building as an historical landmark. And this just seems like it's just another way of removing our history, removing how the rights were created, and getting people to forget all about your rights. But we should never, ever forget. Because if we forget, the government, the power, the central banking system will be able to control the people if they can strip away all the rights, the right of freedom of speech, the right to own a weapon. And speaking about owning a weapon, we see there's a new bill that was introduced, and they're trying to pass this bill that would hold gun makers liable for crimes committed with weapons that they produced or sold. So the law would reverse protections by the gun industry granted by the Lawful Commerce in Arms Act of 2005, which shields it from litigation over gun crimes. And of course, Representative Adam Schiff was out there, and he's from California, and he said if you're a car maker and your airbags kill someone, you're potentially liable. If you're a pharmaceutical company and you sell faulty drugs, you can be held liable. If you're a liquor store and you sell alcohol to minors, you can be held liable. Well, that sounds right on the surface. Well, to me it didn't, but it sounds right on the surface to many, many people saying, yeah, that's right. But car manufacturers can be sued when their vehicles malfunction and cause accidents, not when their customers deliberately run people over or drive drunk. Pharmaceutical companies should be sued if there's a defective product and it poisons someone, but not when their customers deliberately overdose on their meds to get high. And how does the liquor store example have any bearing here whatsoever? Gun manufacturers have no way of knowing which customers are going to use their guns to commit crimes, whereas the liquor store can check IDs to make sure their customers aren't minors. Remember, when a gun store and a gun manufacturer puts out the gun, that's it. The FBI does a background check, and there's no malfunction. There's no problem with the weapon. Now it's the person. So once again, our government employees can't even produce credible examples to why they need to ban weapons. And if they do allow, and this bill does go through, and they allow lawsuits to be brought to the gun manufacturer, this is going to have a ripple effect throughout corporations, because anything that goes wrong anywhere, like software on your computer and it makes you lose money, if you take a drug, if anything, they're going to cite back to the gun legislation and say, well, this fits into that parameter, and it's going to be a complete nightmare. And this is why this bill will never get anywhere. Now, out in Ukraine, we see things are starting to heat up right now. We see the Ukrainian military. They have redeployed almost about 70 pieces of heavy weapons and armored vehicles and hundreds of fighters to the contact line in Donbass. We're seeing a lot of vehicles, army personnel in the area of Mariupol, in the area of Donetsk and Gorlavka. And we're starting to see this heat up, and we see the Ukrainian government working with the United States trying to put this false flag together where they're saying that Russia cyber attacked their power infrastructure. Now they've come out and said, yes, it has been confirmed that Russia cyber attacked the Kiev airport, and they're continually pushing this idea. And what it seems to me is that they're building up and getting ready for a major offensive. They're trying to pin this on Russia, and when the time is right, they will have some type of major false flag to say, see, it was Russia, they're invading, we need to protect ourselves, we need to go after the southeastern area, take back Crimea, and we are heading in this direction. Because as we know, as this economy continually falls and collapses and deteriorates and gets worse and worse, they will have no choice but to push this war ahead. Now, the IAEA has released its official report and says, yes, Iran has not produced any nuclear weapons. They met everything that they were supposed to do. And we see the United States, Russia, China, France, Britain, and Germany, who signed the agreement now can move forward. Now, again, we know this was brought up to us, and the corporate media, our governments are telling us that it's about nuclear weapons, but it is not about nuclear weapons whatsoever. This is about getting into the central bank and propping up the US dollar, which at this point I think is a little late because the economy is really starting to accelerate. We are in collapse mode. Things are falling apart rapidly. Right now, Iran is out there, and they are going to check on the U.S. sanctions, which was imposed not by the Obama administration, but by the Treasury Department. And it looks like the Treasury Department had pressure put on it from Congress, which then was putting pressure on the Treasury Department from a foreign entity, most likely Israel, to push sanctions on Iran, because they're doing whatever they possibly can to get rid of this P5+1 deal. So we have two entities that are controlling our government at this point. We have the corporate structure with the central bank controlling the White House. We have foreign powers controlling Congress, and they are butting heads right now. And as you can see, they're not working for the people whatsoever. We see that Turkey right now, their entire economy is falling apart. The sanctions that were placed on Russia are having a terrible effect on the Turkish economy. They have lost 12 billion annually, 4 times more than they thought it was going to be. So basically, Turkey's economy is getting ready to implode, but that is not stopping them. As we know, Turkey is building a military base on Qatar, and they decided that they're going to build a military base in Somalia. And they are building a base there. They're going to have about 1,500 local troops to boost security in the Horn of Africa. So we can see Turkey is spreading out. They know a war is coming. Now, we heard all over the corporate media that the Libyan factions, they've signed the unity government deal. The only problem with this is that one of the members of the factions did no longer belong to the faction in Tripoli. He was let go, and he was still working the deal. So the UN created this deal without the government in Tripoli. And the government in Tripoli, which was elected by the people, who is the official government of Libya, is not included in this UN deal. And right now, the new unity government, which was formed today, is not in Tripoli because the government, which was elected, will not allow them to enter Tripoli. So they are basically out in the cold. Just like the puppet government was out in the cold. Because they're saying, we didn't agree to this. This is all made up. You made up a brand new government without us. It's like here in the United States, if Mexico and Canada got together with the UN and created a new government, they had a president, they had a vice president, they have a Congress created saying, okay, this is your new government. Do you think the U.S. would say, oh, yeah, okay, come on in? No. They would say this was formed outside, not including the official government of Libya. But this is what the United States is trying to do. They're trying to make everyone believe that all these factions came together. They created this unity government. They need this unity government so they can call in the troops. So they can call in the troops to take back Libya. Because at this point they can say the Libyan government, the new unity government, called us in. And this is why you see the bombers. This is why you see the ground troops. And remember, everything is on standby right now. They're getting ready to go into Libya. They just need that elected government out of Tripoli because their constitution says the official government has to be located in Tripoli. Otherwise, you're not the government. Now, Russia is really hitting the Islamic State hard in Deir ez-Zor. They've killed 60 Islamic State militants in that area. And we have to remember that the Islamic State in this area have executed over 300 civilians in this area. And remember, the Islamic State is the proxy army for the United States government central bankers. The airstrikes also destroyed 3 trucks with ammunition, 2 SUVs with mounted Zu-23 anti-aircraft cannons, and they're continually hitting the Islamic State and pushing them back. We see the Islamic State now is now being reported that they're holding 3,500 slaves in Iraq. Now, what's very interesting about Iraq, we know the Iraqi government is saying that we never invited the United States into our country. We never invited Turkey. You need to get permission. And Iraq handled the offensive in Ramadi without the U.S. government help, and they've cleared out the Islamic State. There's still little patches here and there of the Islamic State, but we know the U.S. government was basically a barrier, and it prevented the Iraqi forces from removing the Islamic State because the U.S. forces were there to protect them. And now we're hearing a lot of strange things, like there are 3 Americans or so who are taken hostage in Iraq. Now, of course, these are contractors. Are they really Americans? We don't know. Then we hear the Islamic State is holding 3,500 people as slaves, and it's starting to look like the United States is trying to create a situation where they need to get back into Iraq and convince the Iraqi government, you need the United States government in there. And it just so happens that they're using the same Yazidi community again, because they're saying the Islamic State, which is the proxy army for the United States government central bankers, they're holding women and children in this area. So we can see at this point in time, this whole thing is propaganda. They want the troops back in Iraq. And they're doing whatever they possibly can to get troops in this area. Now, the FBI came out with a new warning. They're saying that there could be a lone wolf strike at the Super Bowl. And the Super Bowl is taking place in San Francisco at Levi's Stadium. And there's a couple things we need to look at. This is a very big venue for a false flag event. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of cameras. There's a lot of people with phones taking pictures. There's a lot of press there. The whole thing's being televised live. And to pull this off would be an incredible feat of precision. And the last couple of false flags that we've seen, they've been a complete mess. We can point things out very easily. And with all these cameras around, I just can't see them doing it. Now, if they do it, it's going to be big. And there's a couple things that we need to check out. Was the stadium recently sold? Because as we know, if it was recently sold, this could be a hit. Is there asbestos in the stadium? I don't believe so, because it's a new stadium. Is there a huge insurance policy on the stadium? I mean, of course they have liability and things like that, but all my research shows that they didn't recently insure it for twice the amount. So, what type of false flag can they produce in this stadium? If they have a bomb go off, it's going to be televised. Someone might catch the person placing the bomb. Could they place this bomb ahead of time? Yeah, of course. But again, we're going to see the operatives in the area, and they could be focused in on with the press cameras and with people taking pictures all over the place. Is there a drill going on at the same time the Super Bowl is going on in this area? So these are all the different checks that we need to make to see if there's really going to be any type of false flag. Because I think what the FBI is doing, they're using fear to say this could happen. They're using fear to convince us to be afraid all the time. But we're going to have to watch this situation very, very carefully. What we're seeing right now is the FBI, they officially sent out memos warning of a terrorist attack at Super Bowl 50 that could take out the entire fiber optic system that feeds the arena. Now, if they planted something to take out the fiber optic cables and cut everything, it will impact financial institutions. It will impact Silicon Valley. It will impact a lot of things. Now, could they have this set up ahead of time? Yes, they could have. So we'll have to watch that situation very carefully. They're saying it's going to be a lone wolf attack because lone wolves are very difficult to track. We don't know where they are. And they're saying that the individual could be self-radicalized. And if they're self-radicalized, you just can't detect these people. So if they're going to plan this, and they're going to do it right with the false flag, they're going to have a patsy, which they've already told us, which is going to be the self-radicalized person who's going to be working for the Islamic State. They're going to already have in place bombs or some other device to cut the fiber optics. They need to make sure that there's no cameras or anything around in that area. And I can't believe in these areas they don't have tons of cameras to make sure that none of these things are cut. And everything else that I've been talking about, we need to make sure of. So right now, I don't see any drills going on unless someone else can point out there's a drill. The building wasn't insured for any type of terrorist attack. The building was recently built, so we know it doesn't have asbestos in there, which they have to remove, which will cost millions and billions of dollars. There's too many cameras around. There's too many people around. But then again, we'll have to wait and see, because we know this economy is falling apart. We see it is crashing, and they are becoming desperate at this point. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.